You are listening to Shameless Stories. This is Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, publishing imprint for magical unbound women and proud sponsor of this podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories, the podcast that aims to lift the lid on shame and judgment and set it free. And when we've set that shame and judgment free comes freedom and some really cool stories. And I'm so excited to welcome onto the podcast today Lindsey Elms, who has recently just published a book through our wonderful sponsor, the Unbound Press, and is a 9-star key practitioner. Is that right?
Yeah, 9-star key consultant. Yes.
So I'm just like really excited to have you on and talking about the book, the story, and your kind of relationship with shame. And we just did that thing that happens quite a lot on this podcast where all the good stuff we talk into before we press record. So I'd love to just kind of go back to what we were just sharing.
Yeah.
Like you were saying that you'd just been sitting with the word shame this morning, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'm going to stop talking and let you speak. So over to you, Lindsey.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. So when you mentioned the word shame and the name of the podcast, I considered it over my cup of tea this morning, and I was delighted to feel that shame has been lifted. When my marriage ended, I felt deep shame for all kinds of reasons. And it's been 3 years now since that happened, and lots of water under the bridge, lots of healing. The book was a huge part of my healing. And now it was so beautiful to sit with it and go, I don't feel that shame anymore. And it's so beautiful. I kind of felt like it was a little nod to all of the work that I've done over recent times. So thank you for giving me that win.
I love that. But I love that so much because I think that's the thing that, I mean, sometimes it puts people off coming on here because of the very word in its nature. What does shame mean to me? And it actually brings up so much stuff in people. But for you to be able to be in that situation where you can witness it and see that perhaps things that have happened to you in the past no longer have that vibration attached to it, I think that's amazing. That's like powerful. Okay, that's the podcast over now. I'm like, that's done, right? I'm kidding.
Well, it had another layer to it as well, though, Sarah. So I just about kind of dealt with the whole shame thing around my marriage ending, which I can go into a little bit more with you, of course. And then I had an autism diagnosis, which about 6 months ago, which threw me into shame again.
Right.
Not for long, but it still put me there. And the two were quite linked. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I was married for 20 years and we did have some lovely times, and we've got 2 beautiful children out of it. And yet towards the latter years, my ex-husband, I guess we just grew up, and he decided he wanted certain things and I decided I wanted certain things. The shame is, mind the pun, the shame is that he chose to shame me for my ways, my personality, what I was about, what my values were, rather than being honest with me about what he wanted and what changed for him. Sure. So that was a real shame because he wasn't honest, and there was quite a lot of gaslighting. There was a lot of diminishment, making me feel small. There was, towards the end, there was quite a lot of stuff around what I would kind of call like societal kind of expectations that he really stood for. Like, for example, status. He wanted the house, he wanted the car, he wanted the holidays, and whilst I was kind of working on myself and considering what I wanted and what my values are. He was pushing me to do what I'd always done, which is
Yeah.
bring in money so we could be happy and do all the things that he wanted to do. But as soon as I kind of stepped back from my full-time job, I went part-time. I started doing a bit of writing, a bit of coaching, and all of a sudden his lifestyle changed. And then his view of me then changed. And as I got happier, as I kind of started to go, I'm not so happy with this and questioning things, that's when, unfortunately, he kind of started trying to stamp that out. So, and, you know, I don't blame him. I don't have any resentment. I've kind of worked through all of that stuff. And, you know, society in many cases kind of teaches us that that's what we strive for. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we want. Part of learning that I'm autistic has really helped me to completely soften on all kinds of things. So, for example, I know that my energy levels for a lot of things like socializing is a lot less than other people's. And yet I have this rich, beautiful inner world that's able to focus and write and love poetry and be mesmerized by the little things like butterflies on buddleias and, you know, hearts in the washing up liquid, you know, all of those small things which I value.
Mm.
So I can't be ashamed of that because it's beautiful. Um, yeah, yeah.
But I love that though. I mean, the fact that that journey has led you to finding who you really are and what works for you. It's
Mm,
just it's sad that it got to that point with your partner. But
mm,
I think any list today will probably I mean, I can certainly resonate with that on some level, because I think we've all been in situations, or people get into relationship and we find it very difficult to let go of our relationship if it doesn't work. And often that's where the mudslinging can come in, because, you know, why aren't you happy? I'm happy, but am I really happy? And it's kind of, it's the, you know, you would have come up with, you would have been the mirror to him, and you were challenging his peace, if you like. But then it's not peace, because if you were triggering him, it meant that there was something not quite right within him that needed to be seen and witnessed too, right? So at the end of the day, it's a beautiful gift for everybody involved. It's just, it never feels like that at the time.
gosh, yeah, I totally 100% believe that. You know, he was a gift while it lasted, and as I say, beautiful children. And then it was a gift when he let me go.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing so many things that I wouldn't have experienced if I'd stopped in that situation. And it's also taught me a huge amount about myself. And one of the reasons why I love 9-Star Key is kind of looking back on some of the key characteristics of my energetic archetype. It's kind of it's all written there. I wrote a couple of points. So I'm a hopeless romantic. I believe in love. I believe in unconditional love, hence the name of my book, Guided by Love. I was completely devoted, 100%. And it meant a huge amount to me to be loyal, to be faithful, to be devoted, to do my very best. And I idealized him as well, I realized, because I am idealistic. So I'm not going to be ashamed of that. However, the kind of, you know, everything's got two sides to it, hasn't it? I idealized him in entirety without necessarily taking a few steps back and seeing the truth of what was in front of me at times. I concentrated on his good qualities and overlooked all of my red flags, things that were tweaking my values and triggering me, and tried to kind of push them away, for the sake of keeping up appearances, for the sake of the family, for the sake of what I was used to. Like, it's a big thing, kind of separating everything. Having a whole new life is not something that you just go, oh yeah, no worries, we can handle that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, 20 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took me a long time to realize where the truth of things were. And gosh, Sarah, I spent probably weeks being super disappointed that I didn't see things coming, furious with myself, lots of kind of self-deprecation. And then kind of came the grace, the love, the appreciation for myself, and kind of flipping it on its head, all the kind of the self-soothing, like you don't know what you don't know, right?
Of course.
And so, but we all go through those cycles, don't we? We all go through like because it's a grief, it's like the grief cycle, isn't it?
Yes.
And one of the reasons that I talk quite a lot about cycles in Guided by Love is because it's so important, at least in my mind, to remember that everything shifts, everything changes. The only constant that we've got is change in life.
Yeah.
And so if we can remember that it's not always going to be awful, that, that the light times do come, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's happy days ahead. And whilst we're in the quagmire, there's all kinds of things that we can learn about ourselves and other people in the situation. I think it really helps, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have hope, I don't think. So that's why I really wanted to point that out to people. Life goes on, and it's how we choose to deal with it.
Yeah, I guess it's how we respond to the challenges, and I guess at the end of the day, the only thing we have real control over is how we respond to something.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And even if we are the cause of the trigger, I like to think of the fact that triggering somebody into a behavior or a cycle or a mini cycle or typhoon of emotion has to be helping heal something, because it's shaking you out of your, I don't know, it's kind of making it shakes you out of the norm, if you like. And often you don't realize that you're stuck until someone shakes you.
I love that because my husband told me that he wanted to end our marriage on one of the stormiest days that we've had for a long time. Like,
Wow.
so trees were being uprooted, the rain was lashing down. It was like, it was just like perfect kind of what was the perfect storm. So I had, my kind of feelings being mirrored by nature outside. So yeah, on the evening of our 20th wedding anniversary, he just kind of ripped everything up, like my whole life, rooted. So, and yet now looking back, I think that was just totally perfect.
Analogy.
Yeah.
Like, wow, gosh, yeah. And so, like, I'd love to pull on the thread of your diagnosis, because interestingly, the previous guest was talking about autism and ADHD as well. And how does that, did you always know that something was a bit different about you, or did you knew that you were kind of processing the world differently to other people? Or was it just a gaslighting piece that like made you?
I've always known that I've been quite sensitive. I've been quite a quiet person. And I did spend some time kind of in my youth kind of trying to figure out why I couldn't quite decide when to join in a conversation. And I often felt like I was just a little bit kind of separated from the group, if you like. But then again, I just put that down to just being a bit shy, and didn't think too much of it. I knew certain things bothered me, but because my mum is quite an old school kind of person, she tried to toughen me up a little bit and kind of, come on, suck it up, get on with it. There was no kind of time for kind of like softly, let me listen to you, what's going on kind of approach. It was very much, come on, let's build your confidence up, let's get out there and do it kind of thing. So it only piqued my attention at certain times when I was married, and this is where the shame came in particularly. So for example, we've got 2 dogs, and they make mess, don't they? And I just couldn't stand going outside and picking up the mess. I would literally kind of gag and just feel awful trying to pick up the mess.
It's not your favorite thing in the world.
No, but it's the like the sensory sensitivities. So for most people, it's not pleasant. For me, it's extremely uncomfortable and it's almost painful. It's just like it's a full body visceral reaction. And so in certain things like cleaning the bathroom, I would have to find something very, very, very mild, that no kind of chemical kind of stuff. And because I'm very detailed, I would spend a lot of time just kind of polishing the taps and then kind of going, oh, I've run out of time, or I'm tired and I don't want to do the rest of the bathroom. But I couldn't understand why. And there's all kinds of like reasons, like, to do with the way that the autistic brain processes things. But I was never given the opportunity to explore those because I was just shamed by my husband and, sometimes even other people around me who didn't really understand. So, they would say things like, oh, you're just being lazy, or oh, you just really don't want to do it. And that wasn't the case at all. And it was really upsetting for me because I knew that there was a reason that I really couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any of the vocabulary. I didn't have any of the backup to say, hey, this is autistic inertia, or this is because I'm just totally focused on one thing and the rest of what needs to happen is just kind of faded into the background. My sensitivities are too strong. I can't actually cook that particular food, or I can't touch chicken with my hands, or I have to wash them every time I touch anything because it just feels funny. Yeah. But all kinds of little things that I just put down to quirks. And then when my ex-husband wasn't around anymore, certain things that he kind of picked up the slack for, like, begrudgingly picking up the dog poo and, maybe doing a few extra things around the house, etc. I really struggled and it was more noticeable for me. And I was like, oh, this is more than just not having another person there. Like, so it sounds a bit weird, but it actually came more to the forefront. Like it was more noticeable than it ever was before. And I've read quite a lot of other people kind of talking about being recently diagnosed, and they describe a similar thing. Like everything seems to be more enhanced. You almost become more autistic for a while until you
Yeah.
kind of figure it out. And it's because you are discovering what you've kind of pushed aside and put up with for so long.
It becomes very loud, doesn't it? I guess like you're
Yeah,
okay, so he doesn't do that anymore. So why don't I want to do it? You start asking yourself the questions, don't you? You have the space
yeah,
to be able to, yeah, ask yourself, oh, and I guess having space is something that we don't always have if you've got kids and dogs and husbands and things. So I
yes.
guess that was the gift again, was to realize that about yourself. And like you say, if you've suppressed that for a long, long time, of
Mm.
course it's going to bust out the sides at some point.
Yeah, totally. Like even things like cleaning, because sometimes my kind of hearing, if I'm not on top form, everything can sound really loud. So hoovering, just kind of is piercing and stuff like that. And, before I wasn't allowed to kind of get a cleaner or anything because it was, well, it's your responsibility or our responsibility. But I've completely softened on all kinds of things like that. So I get Gusto food delivery now. I have a bit of help with the housework. I have a bit of help with the dogs. I allow myself to kind of completely immerse myself in fun things like Lego. I just love Lego because it's very mindful and it stops my brain from going a million miles an hour. And I have something nice to show at the end of it for my kind of focus. If I ever tried to do things like that in the past, I would feel antsy, like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So it's so much more peaceful now. And I think there's still a few more layers to unravel, maybe, but I'm doing well with it.
That's amazing though, because like, I mean, for anyone who's listening who's been through something similar or is experiencing, noticing changes, like that's just so powerful to know that, we're not saying go and divorce your husband or anything unless that's absolutely what you should be doing. But however, noticing that things aren't, just noticing that things are a
Yeah.
bit different. Like it's funny because like you're talking about, I noticed maybe about a year ago that I process things very differently to my husband. And
Mm.
it used to irritate him and it used to irritate me. But then when I started to communicate with him and say, well, I don't process the same way as you do. And he said, what do you mean? Everybody? And it's like, well, no,
No.
I look at, like, we had a list. So the example was we had a list for my kids' like school trip. And I go through each item and I go looking around the house in my head at each item. Like I know where that is. I know where that is. And this is how I read it. I look at a list and I'm off having a lovely time wandering around the house at each item. And it was only when I got to the item that said wet shoes. And then the next sentence, I'd gone off looking for wet shoes and neoprene shoes and Crocs and stuff like that, but no Crocs or neoprene shoes. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'll go back up. No, we'll put them back in my head. And this was all in my head.
Yeah.
And I was going through the list and my husband went, why didn't you just read the whole list, one like item after item after item, and then do that? It's like, because that's not how I do stuff. I do stuff differently and I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I did not know that about you. And now we we talk about it because I think, like you say, you don't know what you don't know. It's kind of, you don't know what you don't know. And I say this to the children. It's like, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know where your book bag is and where this is and where that is. But however, you've got to communicate. You've got to finish your sentence, because otherwise, how are we supposed to help you? And that goes for everybody, doesn't it? It's like, if you were able to communicate, or you had someone who was able to understand that, you had this visceral reaction to cleaning up the dog poo, perhaps you could have figured it out a different way, and it wouldn't have been like it. Often these sort of tiny weeny little things become the straw that breaks the donkey's back in a relationship, or in a family, because someone's not doing something and it's frustrating, and it's kind of, but there's all, like you say, there's always two sides to every story. So I'm loving that you've shared that, because I would not have known, people just wouldn't know that if,
Well, no,
you say
no.
autism, and it's like, okay, well, but explaining how you have these reactions, or the burnout that comes with it, it's just so fascinating. And I'm really, thank you for shamelessly telling me about your journey, because there will be people that are listening that will go, oh, yeah, that's the same for me. And I mean, on some level I feel that too, because I know I'm think differently. Like, I see it in my children as well. Like, when they come home, one processes information differently to the other. And I think that's one thing that I love about this podcast, and like having conversations with people like yourself, is we all process information differently, regardless of whether we all went to school and got taught the same method. It doesn't always go in.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Absolutely. And what I loved about what you shared is that you have a lovely, open, honest, two-way conversation with your partner.
It was not always that way.
Well, yeah, you're doing it now though. That's beautiful. Because Brené Brown has got this beautiful quote. I'm going to murder it, but it's something like, shame disappears in the face of in the light of day of honesty, and like, so once you share it,
Shame dies in safe spaces, or something like that, I think.
yes, safe spaces, yes. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful, because you would hope and you would think that a marriage is a safe space.
It's not for some people, but
And
I am. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think for me, towards the end it wasn't really, and it was kind of a resistance to wanting to find out what the truth was. Maybe that was just too scary. Yeah,
But
yeah,
I applaud you for taking the steps to understand yourself, because it's so funny, because I hear that a lot in women, like, well, it's always down to me to do this. But it's like, I think women are just programmed to want to know the answer, or want
yeah,
to know. And I guess that's,
yeah.
yeah. It's amazing though. I mean, so your book is all about this story and how you have changed your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, it's for me, it was like a bit of a self-love project. It was a way of me getting clarity, working through the pain and the discombobulation. One of my favorite words, discombobulated.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, just like the sheer confusion and like, what on earth is going on here? How am I ever going to feel good again? Um, and so a few people commented on how gracefully I was navigating my heartbreak. And it dawned on me that actually, because I love writing, and because I kind of did my best to use healthy tools. I mean, not that there's any judgment around, kind of drinking a bottle of wine or smoking cigarettes or whatever, but that's just not me. You know, I have one glass of wine and I get really tipsy, so that wasn't soothing at all. So I turned yeah.
It wasn't soothing
Yeah.
at all, no.
Yes, wasn't soothing at all. So I went for things like meditation, like simple things like, you know, putting your hands on your heart and, you know, just telling yourself that it's going to be okay, and that you are loved and that you are safe. There's something about like having the pressure of your hands and the warmth, and, you know, just reminding yourself that you're going to be okay. It's incredibly powerful when you are feeling in the depths of despair. You know, having a good hug from a friend, writing it out, so that there's all kinds of but it's a first aid kit for
Yeah,
your
yeah,
broken heart. So there's all kinds of lovely tools, and you know, if some things don't resonate with you, then I'm hoping other things might. So, and it's kind of peppered with my stories, just to kind of, you know, give a little bit of background. A positive book. It's a hopeful book. It's full of love. It's you know, it's nice to read. It's not kind of, you know, doom and gloomy. Um and it's got some opportunities to kind of pause and reflect in there as well, which I thought was important. Um and one of the other reasons that I put the 9-star key in there is when you have been battered down by life or by other people and you've lost yourself, um, I wanted the readers to be reminded of their awesomeness, you know, some of their, you know, beautiful qualities.
yeah.
And it's based in nature, so it's incredibly gentle and it's just beautiful. I just love it. Um, so I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavor.
That's lovely. And you know, we I think people can get your book on Amazon and all the good bookshop places. I just want to
Absolutely.
before we wrap up, it'd just be lovely to know a little bit more about 9-star key, because that isn't that a variation on astrology.
Yeah, I mean, it could be called an ancient form of divination. It's got a few different applications. I particularly like it for the kind of personality profiling part, but you can also use it as a way of making decisions around timings for things. It's also really good for understanding other people and your relationships with them. That
Yeah.
gives you a really good insight. So it's got kind of ancient origins in the I Ching. I don't know if you've heard of the I Ching. Um, that's a really, really super popular book, especially in China and the East. So it comes from thousands of years of wisdom, and it's based in nature. It's based on the observations of nature over time and how it influences us.
Sorry, my Alexa decided to pop in as you were talking.
Hi, Alexa.
Yes, just as we were talking about nature, and the technology decides to join us. But I mean, I'm fascinated to know more about 9-star key, because it's not something that's widely talked about. It sounds like a really soft and lovely way to connect with yourself even further. So if you're a bit of a spiritual, if you're kind of in that peeling the layers away from yourself, like, I mean, I've done lots of exploration into astrology and human design and Myers-Briggs and all of the things. Like, I guess I think this is me. I love to like research and know. And when you shared with me 9-star key, I was like, right, I need to go and explore that even more. So it's like bringing it all together, and it just helps. It just points you back to yourself, right? It's like it helps you to understand more about yourself and how you show up in the world. And these tools are just so fascinating for anybody who is on the self-discovery train, I guess.
Totally. It's a beautiful, accurate way of self-discovery. I do have a bit of information on my website if people wanted to have a look. And of course, I do
Yeah.
reading for people. So, totally happy to talk to anyone who's interested before they kind of jump in. Yeah. I've studied it for must be coming up for about 15 years now. And it really just gives me that bit of guidance when I need it, when I'm kind of flailing, when I'm a bit unsteady. And I kind of go back
Sometimes.
to kind of go back to my characteristics, my strengths, and also where we are in the cycle. For example, my marriage ended when I was in a 4-year. And a 4-year can be like the rug being pulled out from under you, and some self-doubt. But then, as we were talking before, sometimes we need that kind of little shake-up to plonk us back into where we need to be.
Yes.
Because otherwise we could just go along, perhaps unhappy, or perhaps, kind of with the blinkers on. And unless we have a little bit of a shake-up, then we could miss all of these beautiful things that are available to us. I mean, there's lots more to the 4-year, but that's one of the things. And then a 5-year is kind of the main healing year. It's like the karma. It's where everything comes towards you to kind of sift and sort. And then I'm in a 7-year, just turned 7-year, because the 9-star key year starts on the 4th of February. The 7-year is it's a bit like, the youngest daughter in the family, the one where like everyone kind of looks after them, so they can let their hair down a little bit more, they can have more free reign, they can have more fun. It's like all a bit more kind of like, yay, kind of harvest time for like nature. After all the hard work, you kind of start to reap the rewards and the fruits. So I'm quite looking forward to this year. I think it'll be nice.
Really exciting. And you've got your book out, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh God. I say this every show, but I really, really mean this from the bottom of my heart. I could talk to you all day. So I just want to, is there anything you would like to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think coming back to the word shame and what Brené Brown says about it in particular, share it in safe spaces. Don't hold it in. I chose to journal about it and then share it very publicly, but only after I'd worked through it myself. So shame can turn into something beautiful if you allow it to.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Oh my goodness. And you can get a hold of a copy of your book,
Guided by Love.
Guided by Love, on Amazon and all the good bookshops. I'll put in the show notes how you can find Lindsey if you want to check her out or sign up for a reading. They are very worth it. I have had a beautiful reading from Lindsey, just dropping that one in too. But thank you again for listening to Shameless Stories. We'll be back next week with another episode. So, for those of you who aren't aware, I am turning Shameless Stories into a book. It's going to be a beautiful compendium of shame stories, but from a place of power. It's going to be a bit similar to this book, Wake Up Mother. You can still buy this, by the way. It's a bit like a sandwich, so we'll talk a lot about the origins of shame, where it came from, what it means to be shameless, And then we will be including a series of stories from amazing authors around shame and connections to various emotions. And at the back of the book, because I love a sandwich, we will provide some guidance, some insights, and some journaling exercises to help move people through shame. Basically, the whole goal is to help people celebrate living shamelessly. And if you would like to be involved, I am taking applications for inclusion right now.